Afternoon and good night. It's best Fridays in football. My favorite day of the week, and I get to do it with this guy once a week. Appreciate your participation, Coach Meyer. I know you're on the run. You're a different set every week. This one looks like it's closer to home.
Yeah, we're in Columbus, Ohio. Ohio State against a 5-0 Maryland.
Hmm.
We're taking a break from the Deion Sanders journey,
Yeah.
which we seemed to. It was almost like we're the Coach Prime Network there for a month, but it was really enjoyed it. But we got some really big time games coming up here the next 3-4 weeks. So great for a big noon.
Did you rent a condo in Boulder because you were there a lot?
Probably have to pay some taxes in Colorado. I noticed.
Yeah, for sure. That's it. Well, it's going to be an exciting weekend. It was a good run. You predicted it. You talked about what was going to happen after they had played the big boys, and it predictably happened. But I think the USC game somewhat vindicated Coach Prime, don't you?
I did. It started off not well for Colorado, but after getting beat by Oregon, and at halftime I made the comment on Big Noon that Oregon really beat Colorado, beat them up, beat them in every which way. It was over at halftime. This game was not. That was not the case at all. I mean, Colorado shot itself in the foot twice with an interception, gave the ball deep in the territory once, and then they, I mean, just nonsense. They got a block punt on a rugby kick, and you're basically handing it to the best player in college football, Caleb Williams, on the 23-yard line.
Well,
So they came out in the second half, and that game goes for another 10, 15 minutes, and they could not stop Colorado, which also exposed USC as potentially not a national title contender.
yeah, that looked like it. That defense has got to kick in. A lot of things have gone on in college football exposing people. Speaking of which, I want to remind folks what this show is, and we're blessed to have Urban every Friday on Best Fridays in Football, spending time with us, but he could be spending with a lot more important people. We appreciate that. Of course, he's a Florida guy now. He lives down in Longboat Key, so we got to keep tabs on him. All kind of things flying around about you, Urban. I'm not going to mention it. I'm just saying your name is around a lot of places. All right. I know that you're not thinking about that, so we won't go there right now. But let's talk for a second about Florida, okay? Since you know that program. So, and I'm going to read you something and let you react to it, okay? Losing to Kentucky is not a disaster, but it certainly is a major disappointment. So there's a little wiggle room for Billy Napier, but not much. Today we'll address the differences between two levels of pain and the fear of what might happen if the unthinkable occurs, losing to Vanderbilt on Saturday. That's the standard now, Urban, since you left there. At the same time, hopefully talk about coaching and Coach Napier and how you address the media and the quality of questions being asked. I want to get to you about that because you've had your differences with the media. What coach hasn't? I get it. But when you go over the line a little bit, it comes back to bite you in the butt. That's my opinion. I don't know if you know how it heard what happened. You probably didn't. You don't have to adjudicate Billy Napier's media. But the question came up about what to expect in the future because the team didn't perform at all well. A legitimate question. And the reaction was, you didn't ask me that 2 weeks ago when we beat Tennessee. Coach, not the same game. You aren't going to ask the same question. I don't want you to pass judgment on Billy Napier. But talk to me about your relationship when you talk to the media. I know it's frustrating. How would you advise any coach to address a question which is not unfair? It's a fair question. So you're in the media now a little bit, talking about what's proper for the media and what's proper for the coach.
I think that's great conversation and great question. It's something that I could have cared less about. I really didn't care. You know, and I look back now, and that's probably why there is some. There. I would say in general, I don't get along with the people who just swing relentless at coaches and players. I really can't stand those people. I don't want to be around them. I don't look at them. I don't comprehend that. I don't want anything to do with that. I don't mind. It's the reason I'm really close with you is that I love the journalist or the media member that really understands the game and asks questions about the strategy of the game and maybe who's not performing well, who's performing well, what a coach could do different. But when you start getting personal and attacks and all that, I have nothing to do with you. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask about that. I did talk to Coach Spurrier last week, and we were just talking out of the blue. We talked, and something he said to me. He said that when you just said a quote, something about losing to Kentucky wasn't a disaster or something like that. I think, did you say something like that?
Yes. By the way, I wrote that.
Yeah, I guess I would disagree with you, buddy. I think losing is a disaster. I think
Okay.
when you lose a football game, it's a disaster. And someone said, "Well, no, it's there's more important things." That's fine, but then I don't believe that's Florida. I don't believe that's Ohio State. I don't believe that's Alabama. When you lose a game, it's disasters, and you work really, really hard not to experience disasters. I mean, like really hard. Like you work probably as hard as any person on the planet during the fall to make sure disasters don't happen. So, and Steve agreed. Steve and I both agreed that we're just saying, that when you lose a game, if the culture is right, I'm not speaking about the Florida culture because I really don't know. I really like Billy Napier. I'm really pulling for him. But the also reality is when you lose a game, if the place, if there's a culture and a feeling in that building that this can never, ever, ever happen again, that's the kind of culture that I wanted to be around. That's the kind of culture that Steve and I talked about that. Coach Spurrier, sorry, that, the absolute distaste, hatred of losing. And some people, and I get it, somebody say, man, that's pretty extreme. Yeah, no, it's Florida football. There's a great history there. There's incredible championships that have been won. There's an incredible expectation. So I would disagree with people who say that losing to Kentucky or losing it, I don't care if you lose to Alabama. It's a disaster. And if you don't attack it that way, then I don't necessarily agree with that.
I understand that, and I can see where you're coming from. But Urban, you're part to blame here. You and Spurrier. I mean, you're because the people they hold this standard higher, and it's hard for anybody to follow that curve. You know that, and the standard. I mean, you never lost you never lost to a rival. Oh, you're 16-2. I mean, come on. We're talking about Kentucky, coach. Kentucky, a team they've owned. I get it. Things change. I'm trying to put it in context here, what it means to the fan. It hurts, of course, anytime you lose. But you had a different standard, apparently. And when things didn't go right, you pretty much owned it. You can't sit there and tell me, well, we played pretty well. No, you didn't play well, coach. When you can't execute, you can't block, you can't tackle, you get beat. You didn't play well. That's not the game I saw. And so I think when you try to feed that to the media or anybody, they're not going to buy it. So that's part of a young coach. I don't mean this out of deference to Billy because I think he's a good coach. I like him a lot. I want him to succeed. You know that. But it's like the old saying, we ain't in Kansas anymore, Toto. This is the way it is in Gainesville, right?
It is. There's a handful of programs. At one point, it's been a while since I did it, but I actually would have a coaches retreat every summer, and we would have the Last Supper for the wives. That Shelley would give a present to the wives, and because I used to equate that to sailing away on a ship for 6-7 months, because the husbands are no longer theirs; they're ours. And so at that retreat, I would always have a coach's manual. And in the manual, I just made it clear, and I would actually sometimes list the programs and say, now this is where you're at, and this is the expectation. I would do with the players as well. And there's no, and I used to really study Steve Jobs, the CEO, founder of Apple. And he made it clear, and there's some things that I disagree with he did, but man, what a study, what a case study on excellence and expectations. And you don't have to coach here. You don't have to play here. No one is making you do this. And that's when I had people, man, we work really hard here. And I know it is. This is championship. This is the highest possible level of college football. And if that's not made for you, that's okay. Pay your taxes, be a good person, be a good husband, be a good father and all that, but you can't coach here anymore. You can't play here anymore because that's it. There's plenty. You can count at least 120 places in the country where it just is not that important. There's about 10 that it's not made for everybody. And Steve Jobs used to say that at Apple, this is not made for everybody. There's a lot of other companies out there, buddy, that, hey, it's, have a good day, and, let's do the very best you can, and then move on. That's not Florida football. That's not Ohio State football. That's not Alabama. Alabama, Clemson, Florida, Georgia now. I don't know if Georgia was always that way. It is now. It is now. Certainly is now. Texas is becoming that again. So there you can go out and count the programs that have that kind of belief.
Coach, again, it was really great to see a couple weeks ago now when you're up in Gainesville talking. A lot of people still talk to me about when you were at the touchdown club in Gainesville.
Quarterback club's right.
Is it? Oh, is it quarterback
Yeah.
club? Sorry, and just the discussion again about losing, right? And how difficult it is for a coach. It's like the worst thing that can happen in a coach's sort of professional life is to lose a game. But when you're in this transition year, quote unquote, we call them transition years, right? Well, how do you sort of mitigate expectation there? And that's why I was just curious, because a lot of talk about Billy, I don't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of talk about Billy is that, well, he's okay with some of these losses or whatever. And I don't know if I subscribe to that whole notion, because, win's a win, is a loss is a loss.
Yeah, I don't understand transition year. That makes you'll never hear that come out of my voice. There's no such thing as a transition year. When you sign that contract, it's your team. It's your, I heard stories before. Well, they didn't leave us any players. They had this. Stop that. When I hear that, I'm like, stop that. And I don't think I've ever heard Coach Napier say that, but I've heard, once again, the media or something like that. Well, Dan Mullen, or what are you talking about? That's one thing that I was very proud of the 4 programs I took over. That one of the first rules as well is that I would eliminate you on the coaching staff if you ever blamed the previous staff for anything. I took over for a great coach, Ron Zook, and I made that perfectly clear many, many, many times. There's a lot of great players there because they came to play for Ron Zook and his staff. So, and the media would try to bait you and say, well, what about, this? I'd say, stop it. There's no, move on. If you're wasting time on worrying about that kind of stuff, which I don't believe, Coach Napier is not like that. I don't think any coach is like that. I hope not, because if they are, they're not winning. So there's no such thing as a transition year. There's no such thing about the previous coaching staff. There's simply what lays ahead. And what lays ahead, it takes all your effort and focus. And if it's not on that, you won't win.
Well, that's a good point. I called it blame the last guy syndrome. If you ever had your TV broken, a guy comes in and says, boy, the last guy screwed this up terrible. I'm going to fix it for you. Or a plumber comes in, I don't know who's doing your plumbing work, but the guy screwed it up. I'm going to fix it. I get that. I don't like it either. But let me just speak from a standpoint of a fan for a second, because while you love the game and you celebrate the game, you understand fans, there's another level of passion here and trying to understand it. And we get messages like this all the time. Can his name be called the Florida head coach again? Please, please, please. LOL, man, I long for the good old days again with him at the helm. That's what we're getting. But here's the thing. This is my favorite tweet, or what do you call him anymore? X, what do you call him? From the week. This guy says, Gator fan says, I can't wait for the fan base to drive Billy out of Gainesville and get us another coach. Then fire him in 2 years, get another coach, and fire him in 2 years, get another coach, and fire him in 2 years, and so on and so forth. That's the mentality of some people. It's like the throwaway. There was a conversation that one of the really good reporters had with Scott Strickland about hiring Billy. Allegedly, and this guy wouldn't get it wrong, he was kind of field tested for how can he handle the pressure of this job? Would he be able to handle this pressure? Well, he has been kind of peaceful and calm, but Urban, you don't want to have too much of that because there's no sense of urgency. So talk about how you balance that. You had your goals set. You was written in stone. This is what you want to do. You want to win, and your standards, and you made them. But Urban, when these other guys don't make them, they say, "Well, Urban did it. Steve did it. It's not easy to win games." Urban, can you explain that?
Oh no, it's one of the more
It's a lot.
difficult things. It's one of the more difficult things you're asked to do is to win. Like I just keep going back to, And once again, I was not the poster child for handling pressure because it ate me alive.
You did.
And it was more internal pressure than, what the person in 33F was selling, yelling, screaming and all that. I remember, in 2000, and it really hit me hard in 2007. No, 2009. 2009.
Yeah.
We lost Alabama and we couldn't sell our tickets to the Sugar Bowl. We're going to the Sugar Bowl. We're going to be 12-1 or 13-1. And I remember there was a lot of discourse in Gator Nation about we have to go to the Sugar Bowl at 13-1 or 12-1. And I remember actually talking to Coach Spurrier about that. When he left Florida, it was what's enough? Am I really going to kill myself to beat Georgia one more time here and take away enjoyment of life? So I guess once again, and this is not about me, but you're asking me. I was never meant for duration. I figured that out after a while. There's a lot of CEOs that take over startups and they last about 5-6 years because your body and your mind can't take it. And that's kind of what happened. I'm not proud of that. It's just the way I was built. A loss, buddy, it would take me 6 months and there's some that I'm still not over, and it's been 15 years. So there's a loss. I can tell you, I forget my address and my middle name sometimes, but I can tell you every play. I can tell you how I wasn't good at blaming, but I took it so hard internally that, I'd watch that, and I talked to a coach recently on a television guy, a friend of mine, that I would wear people out because we'd come in and I'd watch practice film and say, show me where we practice this situation. And the coach, we'd spend hours upon that, about why did that player not perform in that situation? Wow. Hours. A Sunday after a loss was about a 10-hour, it was a 10-hour
process
meltdown of why did that happen? And I never want to hear the word, well, the player's not good enough. I told him to do something. Don't you ever say that. It's going to be, show me on the videotape where we practice that situation with that player. And if you can't do that, I'm grading you as an F as a coach.
Wow.
And it was really, but it was intense. And I'm not saying everybody should do that because they'll be doing podcasts with you sooner than later. Because it's a tough.
It's not a terrible thing, Coach. Come on,
man. Martin boys, man.
Send us to hell with Buddy Martin. Come on, Coach.
Did you watch practice footage? Is that right? You would analyze practice footage with the coaches.
Well, you have to say, Brenden, you're my corners coach, and we give up a touchdown or we blow a coverage. We don't do proper technique on some zone coverage, and I come in on Sunday and that. We God forbid lost a game or something, and that was a big part of it. I say, Brenden, I'll send you a text Saturday night, so I'll see you tomorrow. I need to see you at 8:30, and be prepared to discuss exactly what happened. And they know what I meant. I didn't want some coach coming into my office saying, well, I told them on Tuesday to do this. I said, bring your tip sheets, bring your game plan book. We have a playbook, game plan book, and then I need to see in practice where we practice that. And that accomplished a bunch of things. First of all, it took the blame off the player. And then it also put a lot of pressure on a coach to make sure every week they're covering exactly what they need to cover.
Coach, when not just Billy or whomever, a coach comes out after a loss and it says continuously says, it's a coaching problem. It's my fault. It buck stops here, that kind of thing. And some coaches don't necessarily say that. Some coaches are a little more honest, say, well, so-and-so needs to play harder or this needs to play back and forth. What do you think about sort of, week after week, just being like, well, it's our fault. We got to coach better. We got to play better. Let's go after it.
I tried to never say that. Even, I said that to the team quite often, but what I said to the media was very guarded, and about certain things. And to stand up in front of a media and say, that was my fault. I don't know if I agree with that. It's you get paid a lot of money, and it's the most evaluation-friendly profession on the planet. It's called a scoreboard. We know it's your fault. You got to get it fixed. So we didn't spend a lot of time on who was at fault. It was obvious whose fault it was. For you to say that. So I'm not saying I never said that, And I've also told my young coaches that became head coaches, don't ever get into that game where it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault. Whoa, don't. Hey, we're going to work. We don't. The media has not earned that right to have that conversation with you. In my mind, it's no one's right. It's between you and your team. So you can give information on that, but just start saying it's my fault because the players are listening, and at some point they'll say, "Man, this guy's it's always his fault." It's our
Coach Meyer.
we're a team. It's our fault. We got to do better. And you know how we do better? On Monday's practice,
Fix it.
tighten
How
your
about
chin
fixing
straps.
it? Yeah. How
Yes.
about fixing it?
Yeah, tighten your chin straps a little bit. And
Yeah.
you know what? Monday's practice is going to be probably the hardest practice you've experienced in your career. So let's get right. Let's go. That's how I handle it.
And then Bloody Tuesday followed by, which is not on a holiday either, by the way. I know we got limited time. I just want to get this in real fast in terms of the national landscape. I know you do this for a living, and I wouldn't ask you to reveal all the things you would say on Big Noon. But there is some interesting combinations of teams. I would say we could probably agree on this, that maybe the Final Four might look like Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State, and Texas, maybe. I don't know. But there's also those trio of Pac-12 teams out there, Coach, which I don't quite understand. Oregon, Washington, and USC, and they're really good.
I think the Pac-12's, and I've watched a lot of tape. I never did a deep dive into the Pac-12, but it's our job now. We're very tied into that conference. I think the best conference in football. I agree with Kyle Whittingham, my friend, my former coach at Utah, that it might be the best coached league in the college football right now. When you watch the teams play, they're very well coached. USC, I'm worried about their defense. I think Washington is legit. I think they're, that coach DeBoer is his name. I don't know him. I admire him. I think Washington State and Oregon State are two really well coached teams. I love watching them play. I really do. And I think Oregon, they just put it to Colorado. So
Yes.
it's extremely well coached. I know I'm part of the Big Ten with Fox, but it's a shame the Pac-12 because I love that conference. I used to live out in the West and great football schools, and it's hard to believe that's going away.
Your colleague Joel Klatt made an interesting statement. He said that Georgia has a rooting interest in the Texas A&M Alabama game. All of a sudden, which becomes a big story this weekend. Which way is Nick going? What's Jimbo going to do? One of those teams is going to be out of the deal. And Joel Klatt said it's not a given. The winner of the SEC will get a playoff bid. That's staggering, Coach. You said that too.
Yeah, the SEC is down. The respect I have for Nick Saban. Obviously, I competed against him many times, and they're starting to look a little bit like Alabama. They were really. I've never seen Alabama look like they did against South Florida, as long as I can remember. But then again, Ole Miss, and then who was it last week? I just watched them.
LSU?
No. Where they played? Oh, Mississippi State. Mississippi State.
Yeah.
They're forming identity. Milrose like Percy Harvin playing quarterback. It's unbelievable how fast he is and how athletic he is. So, and I talked to DJ Durkin, the D coordinator at Texas A&M, who was with me for a long time. And yeah, they see, Nick Saban's team are going to rally up pretty quick, and they are.
Coming through. We got about a minute left to go here. I want to talk to you a little bit about an honest question and what you can tell me. I'm not probing and not trying to be a sensational reporter. Let's just be honest about this. Everywhere I go, every show I do, every time I get on Twitter, I keep hearing this thing, and I hear it now. People online here. I know you stated your case. Shelley made it loud and clear at the Gainesville Quarterback Club when the question was asked, will you ever coach again? She said, no. So, but that still is going to be out there. Now, I get it, but you have kind of spoiled people. And they said, get me a guy who knows how to win. And so we're hearing and seeing things like Urban, Brenden, tee up that shirt real quick. These are going around a lot of places, by the way, and we're seeing them in Notre Dame, Florida. It's out there, Urban, without you giving away your family secrets and making a statement. just address the issue for you. You got to feel good about that. My gosh, everybody's endorsing you, thinking you're the next Bear Bryant. That's what Irv Brown told me about you one time. Next Bear Bryant. So how do you respond personally? No, not for how do you respond personally to that?
Well, you're my friend. That's why I do this podcast. Is I talk to you like I talk to a friend. So yeah, we have no desire to coach again, and I never knew this life was out there. And that I just talked to you about losing, and it kind of made my blood
Yeah.
boil again. And
I could see.
I can't take losing. And
Yeah.
I think I share that with the greatest coach ever at Florida, Steve Spurrier. I wish they would have tape recorded that conversation that
Wow.
Coach Spurrier and I had about a week ago, about 5-6 days ago, and that's why my admiration and respect for him is so high. Is that we did things differently, but I think when the two of us get talking, it's almost like I'm looking in a mirror. It's I'm talking to a guy that, whether it be golf, whether it be checkers, and certainly if it's college football,
Wants to win.
the loss takes a piece of your soul away, and that's the way he is, and that's why So no desire to answer your question.
Well, to make this offer to you now, Brenden and I will extend this to you. We will come to you and I'll talk to Steve. We'll sit down at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in the back room. We'll have that conversation again, and you can repeat what you said. I think that's a fascinating conversation, one everybody deserves to be able to hear, because you most beloved coaches around this part of the country, to hear you and Steve talking about things like that, that's pure gold, Coach. That is
Hey,
pure gold.
I got an idea, buddy. Why don't we do I'm on Tim Tebow's foundation. Why don't we
Mhm.
do a fundraiser at Steve's restaurant? Get Freddie involved. Freddie, by the way, is incredible,
Unbelievable.
and do some good with it as well. I would love. I mean, Coach Spurrier, to sit with him and talk, football in general, Florida football,
Right.
and do some good with that money that we raised to
Yeah.
anti-human trafficking. I'm in.
That's
Love
a
that idea.
fantastic idea.
Great
And
idea.
yeah, by the way, just the news to know, I will share with you. I'm engaged to a lady who very much cares about that. That she lives that all the time. She wants to get involved. She doesn't know Tebow, but that would be thrilling for her and other people who know this is an important thing, Urban. And use your influence, Steve's and Freddie's, fantastic idea. Raise some money, do a dinner, and let's get this thing going. Urban, we're in, right, Brenden?
Oh, absolutely. Anything for that organization in general would be amazing. And I think something we could set up pretty easy. Like you said, Freddie is one incredible guy. If he can't help figure it out, there's nobody else I think that's any better. So let's do it. We'll have that conversation.
We'll work on it. By the way, let's close with this. By the way, this show, by the way, is every Friday, thanks to the generosity of Urban Meyer, our friend. We love doing this show, talking about things like this that matter, really matter. And this is what I love about Urban. He always has a higher cause. He wants to do better for other people. And so Gordon Stevens, I don't know him. He just put up here, leave Urban alone. He said he just finished coaching. So there you go. He's speaking for you right there.
Well, I look forward to setting up I'm excited about that event. So why don't you guys get rolling on it? And if we advertise it well, and obviously there's no better cause right now, let's do it.
We will definitely do it. And I will hang up the phone here and call Freddie and Steve today and say, let's do this. Love that idea. Great idea, Coach. Always have great ideas when I'm around you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate what you stand for. Love doing this show with you. Look forward to it next week. And be watching Big Noon on Saturday. And they're not the Coach Prime Network after all. They're going to actually do some Big Ten stuff.
Great seeing you guys.
Great to
See
see
you,
you,
Coach.
Coach.
Thanks
Thank you.
again. Well, there's Urban Meyer. I mean, every week, Dad, it seems to get a little bit better and better, doesn't it?
That's the thing I try to tell people when they talk about Urban Meyer. The conversations I've had with him like this over the years, you don't get those conversations with average Joes and coaches. So I love that about Urban. I appreciate his already thinking about how he can do something for the betterment of other people. So good show.
Yeah.
Good job, Brenden.
Well, and I just think I wanted to say that what I think, you can't talk about it with Urban as much because it's a different conversation, but his perspective on winning and losing,
Mhm.
and him and Steve Spurrier's perspective on winning and losing, it's not the same, and it hasn't been sort of passed down, in that way, right? it's, I mean, maybe Nick Saban but Saban's punched out so many coaches. And they sort of turn and burn on those guys. But what he has perspective on that. What made him great was that he was overdone with it, right? The Steve Jobs mentality. I like Steve Jobs too. That's the relentless effort, that you can't sleep, you can't eat, you can't do anything but focusing on that one thing. That's not normal, and that is what it takes, and that is his legacy, right? So you
You
can't
got to be a
teach
little
those.
crazy. You got to be a little crazy,
Yeah, and
Brenden.
you can't teach those things. And I thought that was very, interesting when he was talking about that. When I asked him about, the press conference and saying it's my fault, my fault.
Yeah.
I thought that was sort of a interesting answer, because I knew what he's going to say. Because I've heard him enough. I knew he was going to say that that's not something that he would do because it's a team effort, right? That's what
Yeah.
it's about. Win as a team, lose as a team.
I
And
think
I
we
think,
should be. Go ahead.
well, I just think that those, having that conversation with Spurrier and him one day, it's almost like it's capturing that legacy, right? It's a often opportunity to capture those stories
Do you
so people can
realize
hear
what
that. Yeah, because I
rarefied
don't think
air?
people know that. I don't
Do you
think people know that.
realize this? What we're going to be able to do? Sit down with the two greatest coaches in Florida football history and two of the greatest of all time and talk to them about the joy of winning and the pain of losing. That is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, really is going to be awesome. So, well, but we will done enough for the week, and we'll tell people, check us out on GatorbaitMedia.com.
Game
Read
tomorrow,
us.
Vanderbilt,
Game
4 o'clock.
tomorrow,
We'll be there and do our usual
homecoming, and
thing.
yeah. So check us out there. If you missed this show, it'll be replayable in YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down at the bottom. And follow us. You'll hear more of every Friday. We do this. Best Fridays in football. Had a good crowd this morning. So
Yeah,
I
by the way,
wish you
here's
would.
a final comment from John Williams, and Napier needs to be there in person to watch that.
Whoa, not touching that one. Shots fired.
Good job, Brenden.
Good job, Dad. Talk to you
Love you,
soon.
son.
Love
Bye.
you too. Bye.